Now, meanwhile, the Budget Department is also reviewing tax incentives for big companies in an effort to raise government income. And joining us in the studio is Budget Secretary Sec Diokno. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so the start of 2017 is you already have transport groups complaining. Kung makahirap si Pangulong Duterte, bakit daw gustong itaas ang excise tax sa diesel?
Well, you know, the price of oil started at about $135 per barrel. Bumagsak yan ng $100 per barrel. Ngayon, around $50 per barrel. Kayang-kaya nilang i-absorb yung increase ng tax on gasoline and tax on diesel for the first time. Alam mo bang tax on diesel, zero? So, to me, that has to be corrected.
So, right now, there are no taxes on diesel in the Philippines?
There's zero specific tax on diesel.
Okay.
Covered siya ng VAT, but merong disparity between diesel and gasoline. Kaya murang-mura ang diesel. No? But as you know, the behavior of people have changed. Yung mga mayayaman, naka-diesel powered cars.
Yeah,
ngayon,
naka-4x4.
4x4, di ba? So, to me, kasi nga babawasan naman namin yung personal income tax at corporate income tax. So, because our tax system is not competitive vis-a-vis other countries in this part of the world. So, babawasan namin yun. So, para naman to make up for the lost revenues, we plan to increase the tax.
Okay. Now, very quickly, just on this point, if excise tax will be implemented on diesel products, how will that affect, for example, jeepney drivers, bus drivers,
very minimal.
Ang pasahe?
Very minimal ang epekto nun sa ano. But you have to look at the impact of that. When you reduce the tax on personal income tax and corporate income tax, mas maraming pera ngayon yung mga workers, di ba? And then they can spend more money.
So it balances it
off. It balances out. In fact, net gain pa nga. Kasi nga, the government then can use the money to invest in infrastructure. We keep complaining of the traffic, pero wala naman tayong pera to.
All right, so let's talk about the 2017 budget. Senator Lauren Legarda on the show called it a compassionate budget.
Correct.
You agree that it's a compassionate budget? But it seems that some of the promises of President Duterte will not be able to be fulfilled this 2017. Let's talk about, for example, you have said it yourself, the doubling of the salaries of cops and other officers will be implemented in 2018. Let's discuss that.
We have to look at the big picture. Ano bang strategy namin, di ba? If you want to grow at 7% for the next 5 years or 6 years, we have to invest in infrastructure. Napakakulang tayo sa infra. No? So number one yun. Number two, ang strategy namin is like this. Peace and order kay Presidente na talaga yan. Because you can't have economic growth kung nagbabarilan tayo sa streets, sa farms, gano'n. So there will be no economic activity kung there's uncertainty and there's no peace and order. Diba?
Okay.
Tingnan mo yung Aleppo. No? There's no economic activity there. So, kay Presidente na yun. And then we will focus on the constraints to growth na nakita namin. Yung number one, we have the poorest public infrastructure in this part of the world. No? Airports, seaports, roads, etc.
So for 2017, you're actually spending 5% of GDP on infra.
5.2, 5.4.
Okay, the largest ever.
Largest. And hindi lang yun. That's down payment lang yun. Ang plano namin is for the next 6 years, we'll be spending something like 8 to 9 trillion pesos.
How will you be able to implement that?
Kaya nga tayo magta-tax reform Kaya tayo
I mean yung, for example, in the last administration, they often cited absorptive capacity issues.
Right. I'm confident na very strong message ni Presidente. Use your budget or lose your job. Ganun yun. Binigyan kita ng budget so you can do your what you promised to do.
So iba yung kanya, use
it or lose it, but not lose the budget.
Lose your job. Kumbaga kay Tino, use it or lose it. Pero ito, use it or lose your job.
Lose your job? Di ba? Tignan mo naman ang DOTC, 6 years kang walang ginagawa, pero naroon pa rin yung secretary. Hindi pwede yun.
Hindi ganun yun.
Hindi pwede yung kay Presidente Duterte. Talagang monitor ka niya.
Iba yun So, use it or lose it, your job.
Lose your job.
Lose your job.
So, malaking bagay yun. Pangalawa, we're planning this mga urban areas like Manila, Cebu, and Davao. Magto 24/7 kami. non-stop construction. Kasi makikita mo nakatiwangwang after office hours on a regular weekday. Importanteng proyekto, nakatiwangwang after 6. And then, pag weekend, walang nagtatrabaho, hindi ba parang waste of time yun? Ang cost na, estimate ng JICA is 2.4 billion every day.
So, Secretary, when it comes to infra for 2017, can you cite 2 or 3 projects that you are guaranteeing may pera na yun at sisimulan yun?
I don't know the specific.
Okay.
Meron kaming kinoconstruct na bypass doon sa Bulacan, approved na yun ng NEDA. That will be 24/7. 24/7 yan.
Okay.
And other projects, yung mga nakatiwangwang dyan, yung mga cleaning up. Halimbawa, yung meron drainage project doon sa Mandaluyong na 5 years na hindi matapos-tapos. Hindi tapos na. Kasi magaling si Mark. Talagang tinutukan niya.
So, the game plan of this administration, do you see it that if all the infra projects are implemented without delays with the amount of money you're putting on them, we will have a 7% growth?
Doable yung 7. In fact, our target is 6.5 to 7.5.
Okay.
So, midpoint is 7%. And it could even be, sabi ko nga in one forum, could even be double digit pagka 2022. Kasi by that time, mga 7.4% na kami sa GDP ang public infra.
So what is in the budget for 2017 when it comes to policemen, soldiers, government officials?
Meron kaming salary standardization, yung programa na inumpisa ni Presidente Aquino. So for transition. So 2016, nariyan na yun. Ngayon, ipagpapatuloy na lang namin yan. 2017, 2018, 2019.
So by that alone, may increase na yun,
may increase na lahat ng employees, civilian, military, police, ganun. And then, on top of that, last year, may-increase na namin sila yung combat pay. Kasi sabi ni Presidente, kailangan talaga. 200% increase yun, combat pay nila. So, by that time, sabi ko nga, siguro by January 2018...
Kay Duterte na to.
Kay Duterte na to. By January 2018, satisfied na yung pangako ni Presidente na dodoblehin niya yung sweldo ng mga sundalo. At it could even be earlier kasi nga meron kaming tax reform. Which means, babawasan namin, kasi importante naman take-home pay, di ba? So, babawasan namin from 32 maximum to 25. At saka, we will adjust at the bottom. So, maraming exemptions. So, kung matutuloy yung tax reform by the first half of 2017, mas mapapaaga pa yung doble.
I understand. So, in effect, what you're saying is, in saying you, doble ang salary nyo, it's not literally plain salary. It is take-home pay as a whole.
Right. And you know, that is what is important. That's what counts. So, the money in your pocket, di ba? Yun. Ang programa namin.
When are you seeing the tax reforms taking place? Like,
to me, siguro first half of this year, kailangan may mapasa na at least yung first part, which is tax cut on individuals. And that will benefit everybody, including you and me. No?
So and then plus
of course, to offset the revenue loss, kailangan mo naman taasan yung presyo sa gasolina.
Which is excise tax on diesel.
Tax on diesel and gasoline. Ang gasoline kasi meron 6 peso ad valorem yun at the moment. No? Ang diesel 0. So, ina-adjust lang namin yung from 6 to 10, tapos yung diesel naman from 0 to 6.
What do you see as the difference in strategy of this administration compared to the last one? Because essentially, the 2017 budget is the first. That's the budget already of President Duterte.
Well, unang-una, it will not be Manila-centric. Okay. 80%, alam mo nung 80% ng PPP projects Metro Manila. So this the budgets of Mr. Duterte will be truly inclusive. Hindi lang rich cities but also poor cities. Hindi lang rich individuals but also yung masa. Ganun. So it will be truly inclusive. Alam mo, marami kong proyekto. In fact, hindi ito ginagawa dati ng budget secretary, but I'm planning to move around just to look for good projects. Ayaw ko na yung mga 5 million here or there. You filter away resources. Talagang malaking project. Halimbawa, isang bridge from Batangas to Mindoro. Di ba malaki yun? yung link from Matnog to Leyte.
Yeah.
Yung mga ganun.
Oo.
Every time magkakaroon ng bagyo, hindi makamove yung Roro doon, di ba?
Oo.
So you can build bridges like that.
I'm really curious, Secretary, are we gonna see a subway system in President Duterte's time?
Pwede rin yun.
The whole of Asia has it but us.
There is a proposal, I think, from NAIA to Bonifacio subway.
At least that's a start.
Alam mo yun, hindi disruptive yun sa traffic kasi sa ilalim ka na bunta. Pwede yun. So we're studying all options, all modes of transportation.
What is President Duterte's style when it comes to the budget? Is he the kind who trusts in you completely and he is focused on peace and order?
Magaling,
he leaves the economy to Sunny Dominguez?
Ang ano niya, he chose his men well and then he delegates authority.
So that's his style?
Yung ganun dapat. Kasi kaya may kabinete, hindi mo naman magagawa lahat yun, di ba? On your own. Hindi siya nagma-micromanage. So, napaka-loose yung supervision sa budget, for example. Although we have this Development Budget Coordination Committee na kami nila, Sunny Dominguez and Ernie Perna. Kasi dapat yung budget nakalink yan doon sa plano di ba? So, yung ganun. And then, of course, si Sunny naman will have to raise the money. Di ba?
Now, when it comes to SSS, I mean, you already have feedback coming out of, will President Duterte be able to fulfill some of his campaign promises, for example? And you said that, look, it's not fair if ordinary Filipinos who aren't members of SSS will subsidize the 2,000 pesos needed. So what are you gonna do?
Alam mo, ano yun basic principle yun SSS is a private fund. Okay?
Kung miyembro ka, ikaw lang ang may benepisyo.
Correct. You contribute, your employer contribute, and then pag nag-retire ka, meron kang makukuhang benefit, no? During the days of Mr. Marcos, hindi niya pinakialaman yan. Marcos is the most interventionist president, no?
Okay.
Hindi niya pinakialaman ng SSS, kaya it survived. Napaka-sound yan, diba? At saka, yun na nga, dahil ng mga membro, diba? Ngayon dahil pinakialaman ng mga politiko, ganyan nangyayari. And to me, mali nga yung ginawa during the past administration na the House and the Senate approve a bill, tapos pinadala nila kay Pinoy.
And binito.
Binito. Alam mo, napakamahal magpasa ng isang bill, if I remember right, around at least 10 million. Makapagpasa ka na. Tapos ibibito mo lang.
Because of the money you spend hearing it, spending for the papers, go on.
But tapos, dapat yun, you should insulate the president. Huwag mo na padalin. Kung hindi ibibito rin lang ng presidente, dapat sa House at Senate, hindi na nag-progress.
So, let's talk about the SSS pension hike. Who should be in charge then of deciding, okay, we can raise it, we cannot?
Yung Board of Trustees nila, kaya nga mayroong board di ba? Dapat at that level, sinabi nila, pwede, hindi pwede. Huwag mo na papuntahin kay Presidente Duterte. Sabi ko nga, private fund yan Marami naman sila pwedeng gawin, no? Pwede nilang increase yung contribution. But mabigat, sabi nga, siguro the best time to do that is pag after na ma-approve yung tax reform. Kasi pagka gano'n, yung mas mababa ng tax mo, ang laki-laki ng take-home pay mo, then a small amount, hindi mo na, it won't matter, contribution.
But then I wanted to ask you, Secretary, is it the problem of SSS today? They also cannot increase contributions unless it goes through Congress.
Hindi ko alam yung...
Okay.
I think they can. They can. Yung adjustment ng... Kaya nga may board
Okay.
I think they're authorized to do that. No?
So when it comes to the SSS, your suggestion to the President is hands off?
Well, do not kasi hindi mo alam pag nag-umpisa ka na mag-intervene na ganyan, you don't know. In the days to come, there will be a lot of pressure, etc. And then, yung basic principle, do not use public funds, taxpayers' money, to subsidize a private fund. Hindi ba?
You told the President this.
I'm telling it now, no? But may meron kaming memo ng tatlo nila, Ernie Pernia at saka ni...
Because then, you're coming from very sound reasoning. But then you do have the President who could be promising things when he makes speeches.
Kaya nga yung the board did him a disservice Dapat hindi mo na nilalagay siya na pressure na ganun They should have decided, hindi pwede or pwede, but we will do the following. Dapat Kaya ka may board eh.
Oo.
Di ba?
Oo.
Alam mo yung promises, sinabi, I'm serious about this. Alam mo, iba yung candidate versus the president himself. Nangyayari yan everywhere. Candidate Trump is different from President Trump. Candidate Arab is different from President Arab. Ganun naman yan eh. There's some promises you make during the campaign kasi incomplete naman ang information mo during the campaign. Eh, di ba? So, pag nakita mo na yung complete information, then maybe you have to change your position.
If I were to ask you in the last 6 months, what among the campaign promises do you feel that President Duterte really was able to fulfill?
Ako, yung kanyang concern sa military and civilian, we're going to fulfill that. In fact, gusto ko nga ngayon mag-ikot sa mga kampo.
Military and police, you mean?
Gusto ko mag-ikot sa mga kampo para I want to establish a modern hospital for them.
Okay.
Comparable with the private sector. Alam mo sa US, yung tinatawag na Walter Reed Hospital, that's the hospital of the president ng US. World class yun. Competitive. Bakit mo i-deny yung sa mga common soldiers they defend us, di ba? So dapat yun dapat tutukan din yan. No?
Is that in the 2017 budget?
Meron ng gano'n. May down payment na yun. And in fact, siguro in the next budgets we will focus on that, no? Modernization of the hospitals.
Okay. All right. Other than that, what else? Of course, the peace and order. There's been a big shift, I mean, let's face it, in the drug scene in the Philippines. Even people have said it's harder to buy drugs, it's more expensive to buy drugs.
Hindi, tsaka ito yung mga nanggaling na mismo to sa call centers, sabi nila, they can go home with at night or early morning, na meron silang peace of mind. Wala na mag-hold up sa kanila, di ba? Malinis na yung streets, relatively.
So, it doesn't bother you the number of deaths that have been out in the media? I think now they're over 6,000 related to the drug war.
Well, that's another aspect, no? Yun, dapat tingnan din yun, yung number, no? Ilan ba doon talaga yung... Kasi kung yung 600, kasama pati yung napatay ng mga sundalo, di ba? Medyo siguro disaggregate natin. Ano yung talaga yung drugs, ano yung collateral damage, etc.
Okay. So the 2017 budget, what was big recently, is 8 billion pesos that was supposed to go to ARM. I think for certain projects, but there is already money in ARM, was moved to free tuition for SUCs.
Alam mo kasi...
Do you agree with that?
Alam mo, nung dumating kami, napakalaki talaga ng... kasi we have only 1 month to change the budget. I must admit, siguro nakalusot sa akin yun, no? Napakalaki ng allocation for ARM. No? And so, nakita ng mga senador na siguro, or congressman, na baguhin natin yan. So, ginawa nila yun, they transferred it to SUCs for scholarships. No? Ngayon, dahil naroon yun, it's a new item, pag-aaralan pa namin ng how to implement.
Hindi na scholarship, it's already, I mean,
free tuition.
Free tuition.
Kaya pag-aaralan namin ngayon ng how to implement it, no? On a sustainable basis.
Is that sustainable
at saka dapat yun, I think, dapat may bias ka sa mga may hirap, gano'n, di ba? And then, dapat focus ka sa mga important social sciences. Hard sciences like maybe chemistry or engineering para hindi naman naaksay yung pera.
Okay. All right. Now, anything else that you feel would make a difference in 2017 with the new budget?
Alam mo, simple lang naman ang strategy namin. Sabi ko nga, focus, yung peace and order, that's a precondition to growth. No? Second, ang first focus namin, infra, no? And yung 2017, we have addressed that partly. Secondly, our focus is investment in human resources. Okay. Kailangan natin yun dahil we have a young population. So that could be either an asset or a liability. Kasi hindi mo mapaaral yun, hindi mo sila matrain to be an agile workforce, no? Liability mo yan.
And how is that reflected in the 2017 budget?
40% of the budget pumunta sa education, health, and social welfare.
Okay.
In fact, yung budget ng education increased by 31%. The total budget increased by only 11%. No? Education is not.
So where did you remove? I mean, if that's the case, where did you take out money?
Nung dumating ako, alam mo, yung VUB, yung pinagmamalaki nilang bottom-up budgeting, 107 billion na. Kasama na yung mga barangays. Politika lang naman yun eh. So, doon kami nag-chop.
Dapat you have to explain it. Ang VUB was started by the last administration.
Correct. Alam mo nag-umpisa yan kay...
Where they choose their own projects, pati ang barangay chairman.
Hindi, alam mo nag-umpisa yan kay Robredo. Maliit na project lang yan, less than 1 billion. Yung parang, if for good behavior, you get some amount. No? But for depressed municipalities, ngayon, lumaki, naging provincial, city, municipality, hanggang barangay na nung dumating ako. Sabi ko, ano to? We don't need this, no? Kasi meron na silang internal revenue allotment, close to $500 billion.
So you took out the 107 billion of BUB?
And tapos, binigay ko rin naman sa some of to the provinces and cities. And municipalities rather. Ang cities hindi ko na binigyan kasi marami naman silang pera, di ba?
Okay.
Ganun lang. Simple lang eh. Diba? Kasi if you can cut the excesses, the fat, di madali ka mag-reallocate. And then, nakita ko naman na, alam mo, magaling nga na ang Secretary of Education si Liling Briones eh. Kasi he's a treasury and finance person. Alam mo, minsan may misnomer na dapat teacher ka bago ka you're handling how much is the portfolio of DepEd. DepEd is handling 568 billion.
Yeah.
Kung ikaw, teacher ka lang naman, ang expertise mo magturo, ano naman alam mo mag-handle niyan, di ba? So si Liling is trained to do that kasi galing nga sa treasury, tsaka public administrator.
So is it fair to say that you've completely removed politics from the 2017 budget?
Yes. At saka compliant kami doon sa dalawang desisyon ng Supreme Court, yung PDAF at saka DAF. Sabi ko, this budget is totally compliant with those two decisions, which is a major game changer yon. Kasi sinabi ng Supreme Court anong dapat ang behavior ng mga politiko.
All right, very interesting. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Budget Secretary Ben Diokno. Stay tuned. With us, this is Hot Copy, is Budget Secretary Ben Diokno. A question from our viewer, how can you ensure na walang delay sa infra projects?
Sabi ko nga yung yung
it's a threat, essentially.
Use it or lose your job. Lose your job. Plus, ano kami yung we'll monitor using drones at saka yung Google Maps.
No, but I think the question is,
it's
government itself. Government, let's face it, is slow. You may want it to go faster, but you have issues on procurement, the bidding process.
Tama yan.
I mean, di ba bidding lang, sir, 6 months ata?
Pinakamabilis na yung 45 days.
How would you ensure then, given the setup of government?
Meron kaming pre-bidding na. Halimbawa, yung for 2017 budget, dapat kung ginawa nila ng mga sekretary yung trabaho nila, they should have bid them before 2017.
Ganun.
Tapos pagkapasa ng budget, they will sign na, award na. Katulad ng ginagagawin namin doon sa procurement ng conference integrator bidding. No? Noon, nagbibid na kami noon pa, earlier. Tapos, ngayon, kahapon, sabi ko, i-award yun na. Kasi may budget na.
Okay. Kapag ganun, I mean, that's both positive and negative. It's like a double-edged sword. Everybody wants things faster because things are so slow in the Philippines. And yet, when you do it fast, you have companies complaining, and I'll put it to this, this is one. The Events Organizer Network, or EON, that participated in the initial procurement process for the ASEAN hosting of the Philippines. They said and they alleged that the DBM bidded out the contract as goods instead of services, which is in violation of Republic Act 9184. So we're talking about, I think, a 1 billion peso deal.
No,
what happened
actually,
there?
the deal is worth mga 2.9 billion.
Okay.
Ngayon, there's a lone bidder lang. No, there's a lone bidder, Stagecraft International.
Okay.
This is the same bidder that handled yung APEC 2015.
Okay.
So 2 years ago. No? So siya lang ang nag-bid. Ito iyon kasi maliit na kumpanya lang yan. Hindi siya mag-qualify doon sa malaking budget, yung malaking project. Gusto niya i-chop-chop into 5 small projects.
So what Ian wanted was for government essentially to split the 2.9 billion to several companies.
Correct, para makabid siya, qualify siya. But wala sa amin yun eh, nasa National Organizing Committee, yung Ambassador Paynor, sabi niya, I want to talk to only one person kasi time is of the essence nga. Kasi narito na yan eh. And we'll be holding what, 48 plus 100 plus meetings all over the country.
But then if that's the case, I mean, to argue for Ion, then Stagecraft will be closing the deal all the time.
No, but it's not only Stagecraft. Open bidding nga yan eh. So whoever wants to bid, can bid.
So Stagecraft won.
Stagecraft, alam mo kung magkano bid niya? 1 billion lang. 2.9 billion yung estimate na ayaw mo pa ba yun? So when kasi this came up during the holidays, sarado ng mga opisina, so wala akong access but yesterday I got the information, sabi ko, award nyo na. Kasi the first meeting will be held on January 15.
So for example, this kind of decision making is exactly, technically, what we need in government. I-award nyo na para mabilis. Maayos na, 1 billion naman ang binid, 2.9 billion ang estimate. Nakamura pa tayo.
Definitely.
Pero that's the kind also wherein you have complaints.
But alam mo na parang eleksyon yan, laging pag yung natalo, siyempre magkukomplain. In fact, technically hindi nga siya natalo kasi hindi naman siya nag-bid. Hindi nag-bid. Hindi siya nag-submit ng bid. So ano yan?
So technically, this is irrelevant.
Irrelevant. Ganun lang yun.
Now, in the budget, there was also, remember, it was brought up with you, why the President's Fund was so big.
Yung Office of the President.
Yeah, was it 8 billion or 18 billion?
Yeah, there is an increase. Number one, because of the ASEAN nga. But it's a one time lang. It's about 15 billion yan 15. So, inilagay ko yun sa Office of the President kasi it was we don't have enough time to distribute it to the line agencies.
And then you have, of course, people that are thinking, but why put it there? I mean, people trust the president's character to be not corrupt. But you do have cynics that are saying he has so much money.
Hindi, kasi alam mo, yung the way we budget, pagka halimbawa, kung dinistribute na namin yan sa mga line agencies, next year, kiklaim nila yun. Kung incremental increase, but this is a one-time thing. So, sabi ko, diyan na lang. At saka para mabilis talaga. Yung Ambassador Paynor, yung National Organizing Committee, siyang in charge dyan. So, halimbawa, yung security, bibigay niya sa PNP, gano'n.
How important is ASEAN under Duterte's term? The fact
apparently, he's convinced na we belong to this part of the world, and kaya nga sipag nga, alam mo, initially ayaw niya talaga mag-travel eh. But, he went out to each of the individual ASEAN countries, di ba?
He did that first.
Kinausap niya
actually, prioritize.
Kasi how can you be the host kung di mo alam? So, ang objective niya doon is to find out ano bang gusto niyong i-take up doon sa next. This is a big deal kasi this is a golden anniversary.
Especially if, okay, go on.
Golden anniversary, and in fact, the plan is to invite world leaders.
So my question, even if China is not part of the ASEAN...
Could be invited.
I was gonna say, will it be the first time that
pero meron tinatawag na ASEAN plus 3, Japan, China, and Korea.
They
will be invited. I'm sure US will be invited, Canada will be. It's a big deal talaga.
So will it be the first time that you have the Chinese president coming?
Probably.
Probably.
Hindi pa nagpunta rito yun, di ba? Yeah, sure. Tsaka kaibigan siya ni President Duterte. Okay, all right. Moving into another thing. You are eyeing on a 200 billion supplemental budget for a national broadband network. Yeah. Alam mo, we might submit a supplemental budget kasi nga maraming hindi nagastos yung past administration. And so we have funding for very important projects. But sabi ko, ang condition dyan, these are for completion of existing projects. Para wala na yung mga problema sa right of way, mga ganun. Halimbawa, meron ka na 7 years in the making na Albay International Airport, di ba? Parang nakakapanghinayang na nakatiwang siya doon, hindi naman nagagamit. Okay, but let's talk about the National Broadband Network. Is this something like NBNZTE? I have no idea, but I trust Salalima to be able to submit to me a proposal incorporating national broadband talaga. So, are we saying that clearly government has to get into or provide
the broadband network? Because in the past, people were saying it should just be the cell phone companies.
No, but, you know, each agency may kanya-kanya kontrata, you know. So we will solidify it, unify it. So Sala Lima will be in charge of that.
So it's very important. We have one of the worst internets, I would have to say, all over the world.
Of course, di ba? Kailangan pa, so meron kang counterbalance. At saka, meron ka bang gobyerno na why should you rely on Globe and Smart? Di ba dapat may sarili kang so that will be part of the supplemental budget.
Okay. All right. Now, entering into 17, I mean, I think we closed 2016 with, was it 7.1%?
What is 7.1%?
I think the 7.1% growth, was it? Are my numbers right?
Probably.
Okay. Would you say that you can already attribute that to President Duterte's presence?
Well, part of it. Kasi itong second half of the year, medyo mabilis kami gumastos eh. Mabilis talaga. In fact, in November, parang 30% increase over last year. Ganon kabilis. Sa akin, pipirma ko lang yan eh. I don't, we trust each other. No?
Do you think the President needs emergency powers to solving the traffic to also help the infra projects?
Hindi ko kasi alam kung anong detalye ng emergency power na yan. But if the tenor of that proposal is parang wala sila doon sa procurement, makawala sila sa procurement reform. You know, I must admit, I'm the father of the procurement reform law in this country. It's a good law. Sabi ng World Bank, ADB, USAID, the best that ever happened to this country. So, to me, hindi dapat yun. Kung meron siyang other features there, like good projects, okay ako doon. But not to suspend, for example, the implementation for those projects.
Yeah. Because emergency powers would involve negotiated bidding.
Yan. Medyo ano rin yan eh. Medyo dangerous din yan eh, di ba?
You don't agree?
I don't agree kung sususpend mo yung procurement. Sabi ko, if you know what you're doing, 45 days tapos na yung bidding eh. Bidding process. Just like this ASEAN thing. No? Alam mo, nung dumating kami, talagang emergency na yan. Kasi 2017, mag-host tayo eh. Siguro na-organize yung around mga September, October na. So, talagang paspasan kami. Okay.
Let's close the show with tax incentives. No? If this is fulfilled within 6 months. First, let's talk about corporate tax incentives. Right now, I think we're at 30%.
30%.
Corporate income tax is 30. Do they want it down, Secretary Sonny?
We want to reduce corporate income tax kasi hindi tayo competitive with other ASEAN countries. No?
So do you want it 22?
The lowest is 17 in Singapore.
That's Singapore.
Right, and then we're trying to lower it to 25.
25% for corporate?
But since there will be a tax loss, we try to recover that through a review of the tax incentives. Alam mo, that's the longest item in the agenda for the last 2 decades. Nasa agenda yan. Pero hindi gumagalaw kasi alam mo yan, ang tawag ko dyan, redundant kasi yan, some of the incentives, not all the incentives are redundant. Meaning, mag-i-invest din naman yung company even without the incentives. No? But ang tawag ko dyan is, it's pork barrel on the tax side.
Really?
I mean, a senator or a congressman will sponsor a bill giving this group an incentive. So they will be forever indebted to that guy, di ba? So yun. So we have to review it, parang rationalize it. At may pag-aaral na dyan yung mga kasama ko sa School of Economics, si Professor Medalla, Professor Riside. Talagang a lot of the incentives are redundant. Okay?
Should we be giving incentives on power? Because you have businesses complaining we're uncompetitive with
alam mo yung power, I think we should just streamline. Alam mo, for example, before I joined this government, I helped somebody set up a power plant. You need at least 160 plus permits to put up a power plant. So that costs about 2 years delay.
Yeah.
Maputak mo lang yun, di ba? So if we just streamline the operation, di mo na kailangan ng incentives. Matutuwa na sila na, alimbawa, you reduce the number of permits lang to 50, pwede na yun.
Will that be a priority?
Yeah, I think tinitingnan yan ngayon ni Secretary Cusi. Lahat kami. Meron kaming mandato kami na cut by half ang bureaucracy.
That's the mandate of President Duterte, cut by half.
Cut by half.
So all signatures,
kasi siya mayroon siyang sa Davao na 3 days eh. Pag hindi mo nabigay yung mayor's permit within 3 days, you have to explain to me. Ganun. So, yun, initially, cut by half lang muna kami. But that's a significant improvement.
Okay, last word, sir.
Last words, I think we're looking at, lagi kong itong aking sales pitch sa mga ambassadors na you are in the fastest growing country, in the fastest growing region in the world. And you're losing opportunity pag hindi kayo nag-invest sa Pilipinas.
Pero do you fear that there might be a backlash? I mean, you just spoke to the businessmen. If you remove tax incentives for business, that there might be a backlash from them?
No, our idea is not to remove, just to rationalize. Anong kailangan talaga in what areas, etc. But to me, malower mo lang yung tax rates, kahit wala ng incentives, parang level playing field. Kung sinong matinik, they will survive. No? They don't need the incentives kung babaan mo yung tax rate.
Because 30 to 25% is big.
Well, malaki na yan.
And how would, do you know how government would source the funds if you lose that?
Kaya we're going to review the incentives, tax incentives, at saka yung sa petroleum products.
That's big.
Big, malaki yan.
How much are you expecting to raise if you are able to fulfill excise tax on diesel?
Ang forecast namin for 2018 is close to 200 billion.
Okay. So this will cover losses?
Net gain niya na yun, 200 billion.
Yeah.
So mayroong loss sa personal income tax. Kasi naman, pagka binabaan mo yung personal income tax, di mas marami kang pera sa bulsa mo, kagastusin mo rin yun. Mahuhuli ka sa value-added tax. Diba? Yan lang.
All right, on that note, so you're optimistic about 2017, Secretary?
Of course, yes.
Okay. Secretary Ben Diokno, Department of Budget and Management, thank you for watching. Replay of this interview is 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. Have a good day, everyone, and stay with ANC.